This is the Fantasy Roadshow.
Heyo, welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Roadshow. This episode is brought to you by Rule 1 Proteins. If you're looking to get back in the gym or looking to re-up your supplement game, go check out Rule 1 Proteins. They got the best protein powder, the best supplements, the best vitamins. You name it, they got it. Go check them out at www.rule1proteins.com. You guys know the drill. My name is Truck. I'm joined as always by Coles and Shane O'Mac. And today we have a second-time, two-time guest, Scott Bogman. You can see him on plenty of things on the internet. You can see him on the Dynasty Pod with Pat Fitzmaurice. I'm sorry, I messed that up. But
no, you're good.
Yeah, on FantasyPros. You can catch him all over the place. Scott Bogman, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you for having me again. In this league with the Welsh, I do baseball and football over there, and then the Dynasty Pod with myself and Pat Fitzmaurice, and we added Ryan Wormley this year as well. So,
that's right.
And they got the draft show with Thor over there as well. Thor and Debro doing that, and then I do a draft show with my buddy CK over at ITL as well. So. Just probably too much of my voice across the internet. So if you like it and you like sports, you can listen to me. But I also may annoy you. That happens sometimes too. So,
Bogsy, right. What's going on, brother? So what's your draft show? I want to hear about that.
Oh yeah, it's called in this draft room, or in this war room, really. It's the ITL draft show with me and CK, and we talk more about the draft than actual fantasy stuff.
Is it live?
No, it's not live. We recorded it once a week. And right now we're doing team needs, which is perfect for what you guys asked me here for. So I am right now like a psychopath going through all 32 teams, going through every position and seeing what they are going to need ahead of free agency. And then, of course, the needs and wants will dwindle when we get to the draft, so we can get a more focused look at what these teams needs and what would possibly be on their draft board, because right now it is the Wild West. And as you know, mock drafts are fun, but right after, maybe the minute after free agency starts, every mock draft you just saw was useless. Every mock draft done up to that point is absolutely useless. Then we start to get a little real. We start to get more rumors after the combine. We get to see some of the separation and all that stuff. So I love the entire offseason process of the NFL. And with the results of my Steelers recently, it's been my favorite part of the year, not the actual games. So, it's where hope springs eternal and everyone can win the Super Bowl. So we're enjoying it right now as NFL fans.
Well, I heard you say call yourself a psycho. I think you just make us feel better about the nerding out that we do. So thank you.
We're all degenerates, gentlemen. So that's just the nature of the beast. So
yeah, I love it. So appreciate the update there. As Chuck mentioned, he's our first ever guest. Loved having him on. Thanks a lot for coming on. And as you mentioned, perfect segue of Steelers and, why we're here talking Steelers offseason storylines. We're working on something, Boggs, where we want to have a voice of each fan base and be able to kind of come back to them during the season if there's noteworthy things. You are, obviously the perfect person, and we're grateful to have you to be the voice of the Steelers for this episode.
I appreciate it, guys. And anytime you need me, just hit me up. I'm around, and, we ain't digging ditches here. We're talking ball. So it's a lot of fun. It beats picking up a shift at a restaurant or, driving an extra route or whatever it is. We're just sitting on our butts and talking some ball. So I love it.
Outstanding. Before we get into Steelers, actually, I see the burnt orange behind your head. How about that? How about that Longhorn season? I want to hear what you have to say about the Longhorn season last season and what the first year in the SEC, kind of what you're hopeful for there.
I am so excited about the SEC. I am so excited that Texas is in there. I am so excited to play A&M again and get back to whipping their ass every year. So it is just going to be a great time. LSU and Texas have a great rivalry. Obviously, Texas beat Bama last season. That was fun. And this season was a lot of fun. I actually got to go to the sidelines and watch the Big 12 title game where Texas just whooped up on OK State at Jerry World, and that was an incredible experience. And yeah, it was a fun season. Obviously disappointing to lose to Washington. And I mean, you guys got to know that I think Michael Penix is a first-round pick after watching that game, for God's sake. He was dropping.
That was unreal.
Bucket.
That was the best game he's played.
It was. Everything. He couldn't miss downfield. I was like, man, I think our guys have decent coverage, and these guys just get open. The wide receivers there are great too. There's going to be obviously all three of those guys who go in the NFL draft, and a couple linemen too. So it was a great season. Ended in disappointment, of course. Anytime you come up short, it sucks. But better than my buddy the Welsh. My buddy the Welsh is not only an Arizona Diamondbacks fan like I am, and we lost in the World Series, and we were there for it, but he is also a Niners fan, and they had the Super Bowl and let it slip again to the Chiefs. So he is having a grueling offseason here, a little bit better than mine. But yeah, I mean, at least I knew the Steelers weren't going to do anything and were huge embarrassing failures in the playoffs, as they have been since 2017.
Dude, so listen to this. This was amazing to me. I don't have the exact odds. You may know that, but preseason, the Steelers' odds were better to win the Super Bowl than week 1 of the playoffs, that wild card weekend. So they make the playoffs, but yet have worse odds.
I mean, I think if you watch the team, that was the exact threat thing too. I mean, like they had the AFC was miserable.
I've truly never heard of that.
There were spurts. I mean, how many times did we think the Dolphins were the best team? We thought the Chiefs, Chiefs dynasty's over. It's over. Injuries. They're winning with defense. They're not doing anything on offense. They're not going to win again. And they do. You know, I don't know. AFC is a little bit of a mess now, but it should be better. You know, we got Aaron Rodgers coming back to the Jets. The Patriots can't possibly be as bad as they were. You know, so if you go through everything, Cincinnati's getting Joe Burrow back. The Ravens are going to be healthier. The Titans won't be so miserable. Houston is looking pretty good, you know, so that's, you know, that's why it hurts to win when you're so close, is because you just have to beat the opponent in front of you in the Super Bowl, in the World Series, in the NHL final, whatever sport you're watching. And when you lose that, now you got to go back to beating everybody, not just that one team. So it is, it's frustrating.
Yeah, the AFC, those quarterback injuries really hurt the AFC this year. That was disappointing. But yeah, so Texas, here's my theory on Texas. You're joining the SEC. Now you're able to get those Texas recruits that weren't going to Texas because they weren't in the SEC. So you're competitive there. And not only that, you're so competitive on the NIL side because of obviously oil and gas boosters, the tradition of Texas, how much money there is behind this university and city. They're going to be an absolute powerhouse. I think of them as the new Alabama. Obviously, I would love for LSU to step into that role, and I think we're going to be extremely competitive in NIL with Brian Kelly, and without Alabama being our big brother. But Texas has so much more money than Louisiana.
I would love to agree with you, but let's win one before we say for the next.
Texas is back.
Look, I've said that too early before as well. So look, you know, they were great this year, but now it's a 12-team playoff. The whole scope of college football is going to be a little bit different this year and a little bit skewed. It's going to be an enormous amount of fun. I am so excited. And, you know, I mean, I read Death to the BCS, you know, whatever, a decade ago when that came out. I mean, it came out so long ago that they were singing Joe Paterno's praises in the foreword. You know what I mean? So, and we have needed a tournament for college football for a long time. I just don't understand it. They want to cry, oh, the kids need to be in school and blah, blah, blah. Well, you have these kids for March Madness missing school for 6 weeks. Yeah. What are you talking about? Yeah. You know, there's money to be made. So let's make the money. I think it's finally a smart decision. And, you know, I know people are saying NIL is ruining the game and all that stuff. Give it up. You know, just quit talking about that stuff. I mean, you know, Mike Greenberg said it best, miss me with all these coaches crying poor because they can't get anything. He said there were 22 coaches hired in 2017 and only one remains at that school. He said a lot of them were fired for poor performances, but these guys went and took a better opportunity later, just like the students are doing. Yeah. So give me a break with all this nonsense. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. So the only thing I think there will be, I agree with you completely. I think they're going to have to change the rules just because of the coaches in the frustration for them to re-recruit every year. I understand that, right? It's like, not only are we recruiting the player and winning them to the school, but now we're having to re-recruit them every single year. I could see how that's frustrating.
It's for sure frustrating, but they are very well compensated for what they do. So
for sure,
your job got harder. Do your job. So,
yeah.
That's
well, to wrap up college football and Texas talk.
Yeah.
To wrap,
I told you would have to shut me up.
No, I love it. I love it. I just, to tie the bow on it, so I'm already looking at weekends. I live in Austin. I don't know if you recall that. So next year we got Florida in town, Georgia in town. Like, I'm already crossing myself. I know there was a friend of mine has a September wedding, and I just said football season. Like, we'll see what the schedule says.
I don't understand.
Fall weddings are not a sure thing. So.
Speaking of miss me, I mean, what are you doing getting married during football season? Like, you know I ain't gonna be there. So put it in the summer or the winter, or I ain't showing up. I mean, that's basically how it goes.
So, Coles, you think those games are going to top K-State being in Austin like they were this year that you got to see? I mean,
that K-State game was great, but I do like the idea of the Athens and just the way that SEC travels. So the one thing at LSU that was really stood out to me is that the entire university travels to games. So Auburn was in town. All of Auburn was in Baton Rouge. So having that.
What else are they going to do?
Well, come on.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I got to start this SEC rivalry off right. What are you going to do if you're in Auburn?
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're already going to flex the whole Austin's a better city thing.
I don't have to flex. I love it. I don't even live in Austin. I live in Houston. But yeah it's come on, what are you gonna do?
Well, if you're in town for a game,
I saw K-State play at the. I absolutely will.
Yeah.
I went and saw K-State play in. I don't remember what they were calling it because they've changed the name of it so many times. But they were playing Cal in the Insight Bowl or Cactus Bowl or Cheez-It Bowl, whichever one it was. And I'm telling you, K-State showed up. Okay, I think that I think it was K-State and Cal. K-State showed up. Cal did not. A way farther trip for K-State as well. So
very similar to when we played LSU also at a bowl game. It was a similar story. I mean, LSU didn't show up, We
don't play we only play in college football playoff. Otherwise, I mean, it's like against Wisconsin this year. We had Neighbors out, Daniels out. Like, if we're not competing for something, where you can guarantee we're just sitting on the sidelines.
Not a good way to do things. They didn't do that at Bama and Georgia, do they? So
no, because they were always in the mix.
Well, I mean, Georgia wasn't in there this past season, and they showed up and destroyed. So I mean, they're playing a broken FSU team, but they made a lot of money in that game. I like it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love it. Let's jump into Steelers talk. That's why we're here. I think we could probably. There's plenty of optimism there. I think the quarterback situation needs to be figured out. But one thing I've said, Bob, when I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, is I've said that defense is pretty close to being championship ready. I think if you have the right quarterback in there leading the offense, and get the ship on the offensive end, with TJ Watt, with Hayward, those corners, obviously Mika Fitzpatrick as well, like, they have talent everywhere. I think you'd see a whole different Hayward come out of the woodworks if he was competing for a championship, and he would just be an absolute force again. So, I think there's a lot to look forward to on the defensive end and build on. I don't know what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, I think that on defense, I obviously see it as a little leakier than you do. Just by being granular and watching every single game. There's issues at the linebacker spot, right? Cole Holcomb's coming off a knee injury. Landon Roberts was fine, but they need somebody else there. The corners outside of Joey Porter Jr., who faded down the stretch, who was great to start, but faded down the stretch, hit the rookie wall conditioning, all that stuff can be fixed. That's fine. But it was miserable outside of him. It was the ghost of Patrick Peterson and a shell of Levi Wallace and Shandon Sullivan, who's been cut by every AFC North team. So, Minka was trying to do too much. He can do whatever. I prefer him at free safety so he can roam and make plays. But if you need him to come up and play strong and make tackles, he can do it. He can do anything. I love Minka. And the defensive line is great. Benton was awesome. Hayward played hurt. I think because I disagree with you that if Hayward had something to play for, you'd see a different Hayward. Hayward is Hayward. Like when he goes between the lines, that he's the same dude. Doesn't matter if nothing's on the line or everything's on the line. He is the same dude, but he was so hurt this year. He tried to go out a bunch of times. He would leave early. He wanted to play every game. He just couldn't make it happen. So I think giving him a rest this offseason season is going to be great with Benton on the interior. And then, like you said, Watt and Highsmith are probably the best edge combo in the league, and Herbig behind them. Hopefully bring back Marcus Golden as a rotational guy too. He had a good season. So the defense is strong, but obviously on a fantasy show, we're not really here to talk about the defense.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about the offense, and I'd characterize it as not very good. So,
yeah, let's start at the quarterback position. One thing I think I want us to do is let's lay out the options at quarterback, make some assumptions, and then at each quarterback option, say how that would affect your Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Muth, Jalen Warren, Najee, across the board, those main components from the fantasy landscape. So what are your, I guess, top three, however you want to say, like what the options are right now in front of the Steelers and kind of what that means for the offense and those pieces?
To me, there are only two options.
Love that.
And the options are Pickett again. And I know a lot of people don't think Pickett's the guy. I just don't know. I don't think he is. I think most guys that have it make it work even with a bad coordinator, even with a bad O-line. You see these guys make a little bit more happen than what Kenny did. So I don't know. I don't think it's fair to evaluate him under Matt Canada's offense because Matt Canada was miserable and predictable. And if I'm a regular dude sitting here on my couch calling out plays, not watching the film, not being in the room every single day, not being a coach at any level, and I can say, well, this is going to be a jet sweep again, then it's pretty bad, right? You're pretty predictable. So, it was just awful for Matt Canada. There were a couple decent games in there, but he was bad. And then when he got fired, we started to see Kenny come out of his shell a little bit, start throwing the ball down the field, and I started to like what I saw a little bit. And by the way, when they finally let him do what he needs to do he had so many game-winning drives because they finally unleashed him. They said, just go throw it, kid, which is what they should be doing most of the game. But anyway, I digress. I don't know that we have a fair evaluation of Kenny yet. And because Kenny went to Pitt and there are Pittsburghers and Yinzers, everyone is behind him. I think he's going to get this extra year. That's what I think is going to happen. And if that does happen, I mean, Deontay and Pickens aren't going to move a lot from where we have them. I think they're going to kind of stay status quo. I think I was looking earlier and it was like Deontay was 42 and Pickens was 38 in terms of ECR right now. I mean, that'll move. George Pickens will make 2 highlight reels in camp and he'll be in, right around 30 or, somewhere between 24 and 30. So like a high end wide receiver 3. Deontay is fine. Deontay is the steady Eddie. Pickens is your, boomer bust type of player. So Deontay will be fine regardless if it is Pickett. I don't think you can bring Mason Rudolph back to this team unless you're done with Pickett. I'll say that as the third option that I don't really think is an option. I know the reason I say you can't bring him back is because half the locker room wants him. And you can't bring back a guy that half the locker room wants and half doesn't want with the other guy you're going to give the starting gig to, because that is going to split your locker room immediately. So if Mason Rudolph is the option, then Pickett's getting traded. That's it. Like if they go out and they sign Mason Rudolph, Pickett's going to be involved in a draft day trade for a 5th or a 6th round pick or something because he's a cheap backup QB option that someone could take a risk on. And then Rudolph is your guy going in. I don't like Rudolph at all. Not even a little bit. From talent to personality, I don't like Mason Rudolph. So I don't want Mason Rudolph at all. Justin Fields is, there's even a rumor today, which is all, God, we talk about smoke green season. Now I have to sort through all these crappy rumors from accounts that aren't verified or are now verified. And who knows? I mean, I'm a clown that pays for it, but it's good for business. So, but it makes it hard for us to tell, are these stories legit? The story I read today was that the Steelers have already offered their second round pick and a little bit more to get Fields, but the Bears want the first round pick, and that ain't happening. So, I think Fields would make this a way more, and I hate this word, but a way more dynamic offense, a way more down the field, more options. Now you can run with the quarterback. I mean, Kenny can scramble. I don't think he can really run. There's a little RPO in there. Of course, he has the fake slide play that they outlawed, right? So there's a little bit of an athlete in there for sure, but he can't run like Fields can. Nobody can.
Do you think that first rounder is for sure off the table? Like, let's say the Falcons come in and offer their second. You don't think and something else, you don't think the Steelers will pony up and say, we want this guy and give up 20?
No, they won't. It's a little more questionable because the con artist, Omar Khan, the new GM of the Steelers, Kevin Colbert was there for like my entire childhood. So, and it was very much status quo. The only first round pick I remember them trading ever was to get Minkah Fitzpatrick, right? And that was at the end of Colbert's career. So they just don't do that. They'll trade up occasionally. They traded up for Broderick Jones last year, but that was Khan. And then they traded up for Devin Bush. They traded up for Troy Polamalu. So there are spots where they'll trade up, but they do not like doing that in general. It's very conservative ownership and team in terms of making wild moves. There's not a Jerry Jones here, in Pittsburgh. So I think that from that standpoint, it's just, I don't even know that they'll trade a second if the Bears said yes. I think that is, I just don't think it's going to happen. I love it. I would want it to happen. I love Justin Fields. I think he'd be great. I understand the stuff about, resetting the clock and, I think he would have 1 or 2 more years left on his deal. Maybe he's on his 4th and we'd have to extend him for the 5th year option or whatever it is. But I think the Steelers are going to give Pickett another chance. And then if he is a miserable failure again, they go, all right, now it's time. Now we're hitting the reset button. We're doing the quarterback evaluation process in the draft again. We're looking at free agents. We're looking at trade options next year. I think they're going to give Kenny a chance outside of Matt Canada's terrible offensive scheme to prove that he can't do it. I think that's pretty much what it is.
Well, to build off that, how do you think it affects Kenny Pickett if they were to give him another chance now that you have Arthur Smith? So, like, does Arthur Smith help him get to that next level, or does it hinder him based on what we saw from Arthur Smith this season?
That's a great question. I think personally that it's kind of neutral for him, which means I think he's going to get the chance, and I think he's not going to do much with it because they are going to want to run the ball 50 times a game with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, just like they did with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. I'm not saying that Arthur Smith can't coach a passing offense, right? But where did he have success? He had success in Tennessee, and Derrick Henry was the running back, right? Stupid Ryan Tannehill was their quarterback and a Pro Bowl level quarterback. And I can't stand him. And I know he's going to be my backup quarterback this year. I know it, that he's an Aggie, which if you were wondering, that is why I don't like Ryan Tannehill. But, he is going to be the backup quarterback, I feel like, for my team. And at some point, I think he's going to be starting because I don't think that Pickett is very good. I hope I'm wrong. I think Pickett is a good dude. I think he wants to be good. I think he's been stuck in a bad situation. I feel bad for him in this situation, but I just don't know if he's going to be the guy. I think I think they'll be a little bit more free with him. They won't be like, don't turn the ball over, son. If you're letting him go out and make his mark, let him go out and make his mark. Let him do what he's going to do. So I do think there'll be a little more freewheeling from him, which could make him great. I mean, that was, like I said, those were the moments where he really shone, was when they said, all right, go win it for us. And he did. So, I know he can do it in spurts. I want to see him do it for a game, for a week, for a season. And I just don't know if he's going to put all of that together in 1 year, enough to where Pittsburgh goes, our quarterback problem is solved. Pickett is our guy, and we're moving forward. I just don't think we're going to see enough from him for the coaching staff, the fan base, ownership, everybody to go, this is our dude. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you in that the only thing I like about Ryan Tannehill is Lauren Tannehill. And from there, I agree with you completely. I think that Pickett is going to get another chance. I think Tannehill is going to be the backup. I actually do like Pickett, though, and I think he can succeed. Now, what does that look like with Arthur Smith? I agree that it's going to be very run focused, and I think that kind of works, and that kind of is the type of football that Tomlin wants to play there. Is let's be hard nosed on both sides of the ball, wear teams out and win games, especially at home. I mean, you know, that Ravens win last year is like Steeler football, right? So that's kind of what they want. So it becomes, can Arthur Smith be creative enough running the ball to open up that throwing, the throwing lane for him to look good? Like, will the offense complement Pickett's style to make him have relatively easy, or at least, you know, one-on-ones with Pickens and take more shots from that aspect? So I like Pickett enough to be able to deliver, but I'm interested what you have to say with that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, why do we hate Arthur Smith, right? We hate Arthur Smith because he ruined fantasy players for us. But what did he really do in Atlanta? You know, he won games there. They were okay with a bad roster. I mean, they really had nothing on defense until they spent money last year to pay for the defense. They're still missing an entire rotation of edge players, right? Like, not a lot of pressure being put on the quarterback, and it doesn't matter how good your corners are when your pressure sucks. They, you know, if you give any quarterback too much time, he's going to find an open guy. So, but what he did do for that offense, which I thought he was a genius for, was he fixed that offensive line in one off season. It went from being a miserable failure that got Matt Ryan killed. And, you know, Matt Ryan was also a big problem of that. He couldn't move, but these guys could not pass block for him. And he said, all right, well, with the pieces we have here, we have to run the football. And so he ran the football. And then when they got bigger pieces, he said, we're still running the football. So I think, hopefully, knowing that, hey, look, you're just on offense here, figure out the offense and fix it. We know he can come in and fix an offense. I don't know if he can make it dynamic without Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown. You know, life is pretty simple when you have the best ingredients from the grocery store to make your dinner. Dinner's probably going to be okay, even if you burn it. You know what I mean? But if you have a bunch of spoiled groceries from the grocery store and you try and make dinner, it's still going to be nasty. It's not good. So there's only so much a coach can do. You have to have the talent on the field.
Yeah. I think sorry, go ahead, Sean.
I just wanted to lay out, before we get off of the quarterbacks, I wanted to lay out 3 other scenarios and see not what you think they would do, but would you be interested in this tomorrow? They're letting you run the franchise.
Love it.
Okay. Are you interested in Russell Wilson at $1 million or whatever that league minimum salary is? Because we know the Broncos are picking up $39 million of his salary next year. Are you interested in that? Are you interested in, at, say, $35 million over 2 years, Kirk Cousins? Or C, are you interested in, with that first-round pick, Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr.?
Okay. So I have absolutely no interest in Russell Wilson. I mean, just couldn't. I would rather have them bring back Mason Rudolph with Kenny Pickett than have Russell Wilson in that locker room, unless, you know, they go and they say, hey, look, the circus is over. You're not bringing a camera crew. You're not bringing your own people. You don't get your own locker room. We're not doing any of this crap. You may not even start for this team. So you are in a quarterback competition with Kenny Pickett now. Yeah, I know you're a Super Bowl winner and you're an MVP and you're a champion and blah, blah, blah. Don't care. That part of your career is over. You are Mr. Limited now.
Unlimited.
You are limited to what Art tells you to throw. That's so. I just have no interest in that. I think that is just so much drama. I don't want any part of it. Kirk Cousins, I would absolutely love. I don't figure out the money. I don't care. I would love to have Kirk Cousins. I think that there is no way in hell that Kirk Cousins looks at the Steelers and goes, that's where I want to be. I mean, look, Mike Tomlin's an awesome coach to play for, but when you have a conservative offensive play caller like Arthur Smith, and you're going to run the ball a bunch, I don't think we interest Kirk Cousins. So I just don't. That's why I don't think it's an option. If they want to put the full court press, I will be here with bated breath. I love it. I want it. That's in. I can't even remember who the last one was. Oh, Bo Nix or
Penix.
Not in the first. In the second, if they fell or trade back into the first late, so you can get that. And that's a thing that people forget when they're doing their mocks. Yes, these teams at the back end don't need quarterbacks, but because you can get the 5th-year option and keep that quarterback on a cheaper deal, so many teams will trade back into the end of the first round to take a quarterback specifically, even though it will cost them more money to take a first rounder. Initially, it will save them if they get that guy for 5 years at that. And that's what they call the window. And that's why before Patrick Mahomes' extension, they were winning. And then, people were like, well, they can't afford this, they can't afford that. And they still won, So I would be fine. In that scenario, I would much prefer Penix, but Penix doesn't fit for Arthur Smith. So I think Bo Nix would be a much better fit for the Steelers if they wanted to do that. But I also think there's enough needs and not enough cap space to where I think they're going to need to be filling out the roster with some of those draft picks. So I just don't think a quarterback is in play there. I really I'm trying to get to that where they take Penix and, maybe just adjust things on offense for him. But I mean, also, if you put Penix behind that offensive line with his injury history, you are asking for trouble. So if there is a quarterback for the Steelers in the draft, I think it's probably Bo Nix. I think that's probably the option.
Well, let's segue into, we talked a little bit about how Arthur Smith is going to change the fantasy value of some of the offensive weapons, but let's dig into that a little bit deeper. I'd like to hear on the pass catching end. That's the main concern, right? So let's hear one thing that I think is interesting is that's going to be baked into the value of Deontay and Pickens. Course, so does that create value there? Like, is that us buying into Pickett, or is it maybe that his offense evolves a little bit, understands like what kind of Pickens' frustrations from this past season and trying to get him the ball more? Is that maybe an angle that you can buy into some of that value? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think that anything away from Matt Canada is an overall positive, even if it is Arthur Smith, who for fantasy we have hated his guts for the last couple of years, right? Like he's not getting the ball to Drake London, he's not getting the ball to Kyle Pitts, but also look at his quarterbacks, man. Like I said, there's only so much a coach can do, and this guy turned Ryan Tannehill into a Pro Bowler once again. He had AJ Brown and Derrick Henry. Not hard to be a Pro Bowler when you have the best running back and one of the best wide receivers in the league, right? It's still crazy for me to think that Todd Gurley is older than he's younger than Derrick Henry, and he is retired, right? And Derrick Henry is just a freak of nature. He is an insane running back. So, I think getting away anything from Matt Canada is positive, but also like, let's give Arthur Smith not credit, but like Desmond Ridder was his quarterback and Taylor Heineke was his backup. Who else did he try to make work there? Marcus Mariota. Like, they just didn't have the guy. Matt Ryan, it was the corpse of Matt Ryan out there, right? So there is not an option that he had in Atlanta at quarterback that you could reasonably ask any coach to make a playoff run with. So I think that Pickett is better than everyone he had in Atlanta, even though I don't think he's great. I think he's still way better than anyone they had in Atlanta the last couple seasons. So I think that just overall, it's definitely a positive for those guys, because even in Arthur Smith's offense, you will get more downfield and you'll at least get passes thrown over the freaking middle. I mean, it wasn't until like week 8 where they threw a ball over the middle, and it was designed. It was a play action to, I think it was Freiermuth over the middle, and he just dropped it. And it was like, they did it the week that Matt Canada got fired too. They did the same play and it worked. And everyone was like, oh, they're throwing it over the middle. Well, Canada did it 2 weeks before and it just got dropped. But it was like, well, you can't you're the boy who cried wolf. We're not going to put anyone in the middle if you haven't thrown over the middle at all. We're going to play the sides. And that's what every defense did. So it, both those guys are getting double covered, and Deontay thrives over the middle. Freiermuth thrives over the middle. We saw George Pickens score a 70-yard touchdown against the Raiders because he was in the slot, and they weren't covering it because you didn't need to against Pittsburgh. So I just think opening up the field more for Arthur Smith, even though they are going to run the ball an absurd amount of times, an amount of times that is going to make everybody mad that drafted George Pickens and Deontay in some games. I understand that, but I think anything getting away from Matt Canada is an overall positive for this offense. So I will say both those guys should take a little bit of a step up this year at the very least.
Yeah, I think there's value there, right? Because like if we're talking about industry like perception of Arthur Smith right now, it's like, oh no, I don't want any piece of Arthur Smith offense. You cannot trust that. So because there's that public perception, I think there's going to be baked in value. It's just like, will the Steelers offense be productive? And I think they will. So I'll be looking at that. I'll be looking at their pass catchers just from a public perception standpoint.
I'm looking at Pickens right now, and he is 39 in ECR. Would you rather have Pickens or would you rather have JSN?
It depends who's quarterback for the Seahawks.
No.
And Lockett's probably gone. So
Lockett's gone, I think. So JSN.
But again,
they're going to go back.
Geno, I don't like Geno. I
don't like Geno either. But he's been good enough, right? So that's what we'll say about Geno. But also, that team's going to run the ball a million times a game too, because that's Mike McDonald coming over from Baltimore, who's a play defense and run the ball guy, right? Yeah. And so I think, and why wouldn't you run the ball if you have Walker and Charbonnet? So right. I think they might be pretty close in terms of value. They do it way different, but I think in terms of value, they should be close. So at least they're right there. How about
JSN will get steamed. He'll get steamed though once Lockett is not there. So I think his value increases, and
sure,
Pickens maybe stays the same, if not,
I think that's fair. But he's in the range here. Like, I don't know. I think most of these guys probably am still taking ahead of Pickens. Yeah. Are you taking Hopkins or Pickens?
Pickens.
How about Hopkins McLaurin?
I'm going Pickens.
I like Yeah, I like.
Who's that quarterback? Who's that quarterback?
If that's Drake May,
if it's Drake May,
it's too early to play this. Who's that quarterback? Is
but that's what we do. So it's
McLaurin might be a bear. He might get traded in that, moving up to #1 overall.
I mean, I want to ask you guys Neighbors, but I mean, it's almost for sure Neighbors. I think Neighbors is an absolute stud. But if he goes to the Giants, maybe we're talking, So it's really interesting right now. But I think the overall thought process for me anyway is Matt Canada sucked. Anything is positive, even if it's Kenny and boring Arthur Smith. I think anything is positive for those wideouts, and Freiermuth as well. And he'll be healthier coming into the year this season also. So
is Washington going to Jonnu Smith Freiermuth all season? Is that something to watch?
Nope, because Jonnu Smith is going to Jonnu Smith all season. He got released today. He is 100% going to the Steelers and re-signing. Why would he not? Arthur Smith made him so much money. Like unless he wants an absurd contract, which he might, because the Steelers should not do that with they've got Pat, they've got Washington, they've got Hayward. So I think they're okay at tight end, but I mean, if he wants to sign on a cheap deal and go back to his buddy, I could absolutely seeing it be Pat and Jonnu going, and Washington maybe is a trade guy at that point. So
we're all just can't wait to see a Jonnu Smith end around run from the 1 yard line.
No, Matt Canada, no more end arounds. Arthur Smith doesn't play that. So now he's not going to throw it to the tight end in the end zone. We know that, don't we? So, it's going to be all Najee. It's going to be Najee. He's going to score 15 touchdowns this year. Be super annoying. He's going to have 800 yards and 15 touchdowns. Everybody's going to be so mad. So
perfect segue. What is the running back room going to look like? Is this split going to change with, everyone expecting Warren to kind of take over more of a primary role? What are your thoughts here?
No, I agree. Warren is absolutely not taking a primary role. And I'm not saying he won't get carries, but he is not going to be a 300 carry guy ever. He's not big enough. So he is exactly what he needs to be. And this is the same thing with studs, Gibbs, Achane, right? These guys, they're a little bit slighter. I mean, especially Achane, but they're a little bit slighter, but you don't need them to touch the ball 20 times in a game. You need 12 to 15. That's what you want. And that is, I think for Warren, that's pushing it a little bit. I think 10 to 12 is probably where he needs to be. Now, look, if he has a hot hand and Najee's fumbled twice, screw Najee, put Jalen in there. You know, he can do it. So there'll be bursts where he has more than that. But I think in general, it is thunder and lightning, and Najee is the thunder. Jalen is the lightning, and that is the way it's going to be. Unless Najee just looks so bad. I can't figure him out, because there are times where Najee looks like the best running back in the league. And then there's other times where he looks like he just crapped his pants and he is not running fast. And I think a lot of that is from him playing through stuff as well. You know, easy excuse for anybody. But also, you know, that Liz Frank injury was bad a couple years ago. Those are never good injuries for anyone. You know, I mean, they're old. It's called Liz Frank because French soldiers would get their foot stuck in the horse stirrup and fall, and their foot would still be stuck and it would crack in half. That's why it's called a Liz Frank injury. It's a bad, nasty injury. So his didn't do all of that, but it's the same area. So, you know, that was a bad injury. I think the further away he gets from that, the better he looks as well. Were there some vision problems last year? Yeah, but I mean, it's PTSD. When you're running into 9-man stacked boxes, you're just trying to push the pile every single play. You're not going to see open ground because you're not used to it. You know, all they did was run in between the tackles last year until Matt Canada left, and then you saw a better Najee. So once again, I don't want to blame every single thing on Matt Canada, because I think there's a lack of talent on the line and at the quarterback position for Pittsburgh, but the playmakers are there. Tight end, wide receiver, running back, those pieces are there. Fix the center position, fix the left tackle position, figure out the quarterback, and you have a pretty damn good team that will compete in the North, even with great teams in the North. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland. That is a tough division.
Yeah. Let's talk draft.
Yeah, I was
sorry. Go ahead, Trey.
I was going to say that's a great segue. You know, this is mock draft season. We've seen plenty of mock drafts come out on the on the socials. What is your ideal draft for the Steelers? If you were in their position, kind of run me through the first couple rounds and kind of who you would like to see them go after.
Yeah, team needs and draft, who you want to fill those gaps with in the draft.
Trade everything for Caleb Williams, right? That's number one, of course. But let's just assume that's not the option. I want Jackson Powers-Johnson in the first round so bad. And that is a typical boring Steelers pick that is not extremely sexy unless you're a football nerd. Then the center is sexy, because I watched, the last 2 years, I've watched Kendrick Green and Mason Cole be on their ass for the entire game at center for Pittsburgh. Bad snaps, bad blocking, bad everything. And Jackson Powers-Johnson is a plug-and-play Pro Bowl level center that is going to solve that problem. So that is like my number one dream scenario, is Jackson Powers-Johnson. Even if they have to trade up a couple spots like they did for Broderick last year, perfect situation. I would like a tackle as well. I know Fashanu has fallen down some boards. Fuaga kind of hits and misses, so if JPJ is gone and there are teams that need center in front of Pittsburgh as well, and Miami's one spot behind Pittsburgh and also needs a center. So there's a lot of center needs right there, where Pittsburgh picks at 20. So in the first round, if it's not a center, offensive tackle will be good. Cornerback is also acceptable. There's a lot of good ones in this draft, so I'd kind of rather wait and see what the depth looks like later, because I think we're limited on O-linemen. And it's, well, not limited at O-linemen, but limited at really upper echelon talent at the position of O-line, early. And then CB is just so deep. There are so many good wide receivers, the deepest position in this class. So teams are I think we might get a little wide receiver chicken in the first round from some of these teams. There's so many good ones. Maybe we'll wait, but you can't wait on Marvin. You can't wait on Malik. You can't wait on Dunze. Those guys are going top 10, I think, almost for sure all of them. But for Pittsburgh, CB is huge. And then if we miss JPJ, like I do think we will in the first round, and we take an offensive lineman or a corner. Quinyon Mitchell was great. Terrion Arnold, I know a lot of people like as well. Kool-Aid's in there. All those guys are in play. Cooper DeSheen. In the second round, Zach Frazier or Cedric Van Pratt from Georgia, like those two centers, Frazier and Van Pratt. I think those are options in the second round. If not, once again, corner, because corner is a big need. Safety is a big need for Pittsburgh. Offensive line depth outside of, because I think the guard spots are good. Siamalu played through a shoulder injury for most of the year. James Daniels was adequate, a little above average in terms of like PFF grade and stuff. So I think those guys are fine. So center, tackle. I think Broderick moves to left, so we'll probably get a right tackle. Corner, safety, and then linebacker. The position is a mess. Like I said before, it's a Landon Roberts. Cole Holcomb tore his knee late in the season. And they were going down. They were going to that card scammer, Blake Martinez. That's how bad it was.
Card scammer.
I mean, that's how bad it was. Yeah, they had to go collect them all the linebackers, because every single stupid linebacker was hurt. So it was just a mess at that position too. So it's like right now going into the season, it's Roberts and Mark Robinson. I don't know that Holcomb is going to be available to go week 1. And then there's nothing behind those guys. So, and there's not a lot of money that they have to spend in free agency either. They'll make a couple cuts. I think Larry Ogunjobi will go. That'll free up a little bit of room, because Keanu Benton was so good, and they have depth along the interior of the defensive line. But yeah, the big needs outside of obviously quarterback are center, tackle, linebacker, corner, and another safety, whoever the best talent is. Because like I said, Minka, you can play him at free, and that's where I prefer him to make those plays, but you got to get somebody at strong if he's going to play free, because no one is tackling, no linebackers. So it's like watching Texas all over again, which I'm not used to with the Steelers. The Steelers are always known for good tackling. Texas is whiffing tackles at a crazy rate until this year. So it's like I was watching the same team for a couple, for a season there, and it was driving me crazy. So anyway, that is my team needs for the Steelers as of now. Draft.
So, and then you mentioned not much money there. So free agency is going to be pretty quiet, you think, for Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, Mike Tomlin, like I said before, is a player favorite. So there's a lot of guys that want to come play for Tomlin that maybe will take a little bit less money. I think that's how the Steelers landed Holcomb and Landon Roberts last season, right? Is because those guys wanted to play for Tomlin. So Tomlin is still an attractive feature to come and play in Pittsburgh. But I mean, I think the most desperate need is corner, right? Figuring out somebody to play next to Joey Porter Jr. and potentially in the slot. And I mean, Patrick Peterson may be the safety. They may just move him, because Patrick Peterson still has great instincts, but he is so slow now. He cannot cover NFL wide receivers unless you're in the end zone. You're in the red zone, end zone, wherever. He can keep up with those guys. And he's still, like, he made a couple plays down at the end zone. But, I mean, it was just so much watching him get cooked this year. It was driving me crazy. So he's got to move positions as well. So, yeah, probably not a lot to be spent on until they make a couple cuts. And I expect a couple big ones to come. But, I mean, I was elated when they cut Presley Harvin. I mean, who wants a fat ass punter? I mean, it looked like you put me in a Steelers uniform off the bench, not working out for a decade, and I'm kicking footballs, and Presley had a couple good games, but he was unbelievably inconsistent. It'd be like, honestly, it would be like me punting, because sometimes they would be great and they would look amazing. And other times he would kick it off the side of his foot out of bounds. And I don't know what the thing was. It didn't matter the weather or the time. It was just like, if we really needed a great punt, it's a shank. It was like the pressure got to him every time. So I'm glad to see a new punter for a little field position as well. So not that we were going down there, and not that punters are available in many fantasy leagues, but Steelers will be getting a new punter too.
So real quick question, with an extra 2 in this year's draft you guys got from Buffalo, is there somebody you would move up 10 spots if it cost you one of those twos to take in the first round, whether if it's Kool-Aid from Alabama to fill that cornerback need. Is there somebody like him or anybody else?
I don't think we have an extra 2. Are you sure?
I thought you got an extra second this year.
I didn't see it. I mean, I could have made a mistake when I was making my sheet, but I have an extra 4.
Maybe that was it.
The extra 2 was last year from Chicago because of the Chase Claypool deal. That's what it was. But extra 2 would be lovely. But I think that I kind of think the center position might be filled before the draft, unfortunately, and my Jackson Powers Johnson dream is going to be shot dead before we even get there, because there's really 3 guys in the draft and you can't really control that. So I think that second round pick, I think 20th overall pick, you go BPA, whoever is highest on your board, right? And then I think that second round pick is going to be a corner. I think that's how it's going to end up going. So
quick break from Steelers talk. Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, where would you like to see them end up?
Put either one of them in Kansas City. Give Patrick Mahomes a downfield threat, man. And they're borderline first rounders too. I mean, anything vertical for Worthy, I would love. He is a speed guy, but he is absolutely a guy that, ends up in a bad situation and they're jamming him at the line and the coaches aren't making any adjustments for him and he gets stuck. I think Adonai is ready to go. I think he is. I think he's going to be great immediately. I think Worthy has more upside, but it may take him a year or 2 longer. But I mean, there's a lot of people. I heard my boy Andrew Erickson over at FP. He texted me when he was just doing his study stuff, and he was like, "Tell me why Tank Dell isn't just, or why Xavier Worthy isn't just taller Tank Dell." I was like, "That's actually a pretty good comparison." And then 3 weeks later, I saw Steve Smith make that same comparison on a podcast. So, and we know Tank Dell had a ton of success. So that's kind of, you're looking at a lightning quick guy that snaps off his routes. And when the ball is in his hands, if he makes a guy miss, which is rare because he's skinny, he's not breaking a lot of tackles. But if you whiff on that tackle, he is gone. Yep. And Adonai Mitchell just has an insane catch radius. He can make the acrobatic catches. I'd say the thing with both of them, for Worthy at size, a little bit is a concern as well, just with the slight frame. But both of them will have some major drops. A lot of Deontay Johnson going on there with the hands. So that can be annoying, but these are both really good prospects. I put them, Pat Fitzmaurice and I did tiers this week of the prospects going into the combine. And obviously things will change after the combine. Not only will we get numbers on a lot of these guys, but we'll get rumors coming out of the draft as well. This team likes this player. This team likes that player. Once again, half of it is smoke screen BS that none of us like, and we have to wade through it. But we'll pay attention to all of it. We know that. But I have those guys. I have Worthy and Mitchell in with like Brian Thomas and Troy Franklin and guys like that, kind of those back end players in the first round. And then I have them ahead of, the Roman Wilsons, Ladd McConkey's, Pearsall, all the white guys. I have them ahead of all the white guys. I guess I just realized as I was listing off all those guys. But yeah, I have them ahead of those guys just in terms of athleticism and stuff. But, this class at wide receiver is so unbelievably deep. I mean, Roman proved himself at the Senior Bowl. He could easily, good awesome numbers. He's going to go into that group. That's a borderline first rounder, right? And you saw some mocks with them after the Senior Bowl where Roman was in the first, and I'm like, all right, let's calm down. Let him have a good combine too, and then we'll do it. But I mean, Michigan they did the Arthur Smith. They ran the ball 50 times a game and barely had to throw it. So, but when they threw it, Roman was awesome. I remember
he's awesome.
I remember him making that catch like around a guy. I think that was against Nebraska, maybe early in the season. I was like, good God. And Pearsall has made some amazing catches too. This class is so deep.
Roman Wilson, he was a guy that, like, when he popped off the Senior Bowl, I was a little upset because I was so high on him prior to that. Like, he looks the part. Like, when he catches the ball and how it's just that next, you're like, all right, this guy's special. If you watched enough of his film, you saw that from him. So that was definitely one of those situations where it was like, I thought I was going to get a sneaky rookie draft pick there, but not so. Well,
don't worry. I mean, there's so many wide receivers. I mean, Leggett and Walker are falling too far, I think, in the process right now, because they're both very good players. And they had, like Leggett really just, I guess he had a couple bad days in practice, but it was really the size for him. And then Walker with all the drops. And, drops suck. I hate them. And it makes, it's not the reason why I dislike Deontay Johnson. It's more of the punching Mitchell Trubisky in the face in the middle of a game that makes me not like Deontay Johnson and throwing little hissy fits whenever he doesn't get the ball, which Pickens does too, but at least Pickens is young. Deontay, you're a vet. What are you doing? But, it's the drops will drive you crazy. The drops, and if you watch Deontay enough, how many times does he get the ball, run backwards 3 yards to try to go around a defender, then run past them or through them and put a move on them or something. It drives me nuts. But drops don't worry me for fantasy until they take you off the field. And they're not taking Walker off the field, but they're definitely causing him playing time right now for sure by moving his draft stock down, because the NFL looks at you different if you're a 2nd round pick or a 4th round pick. So, if you get cut from that first team, if you're a 2nd rounder, you are definitely getting added by someone who thinks they can fix you. If you're a 4th rounder, maybe not so much. So it is affecting these guys in the process, but I still think Walker's really good. I still think Leggett is so good with the ball in his hands. I don't care that he came in a little bit undersized. It's a lot like the hands with Kenny Pickett. I never gave a crap about your hand size, and I honestly don't really understand thresholds for NFL GMs, because sure, maybe at a certain point you're lowering your risk by not taking a guy that's underweight or overweight or injury history or whatever, but it boils down to how good is this guy going to be? How well can he fit into my system? So I think putting a threshold on players is absurd. It's not something I would ever do. If I'm splitting hairs and the difference is a 1/4 inch in hand size, and that is the difference maker, I can make that be the difference maker, but I can't make it be the reason why I didn't draft a guy because he didn't hit this exact number that I thought, because I don't like it.
That's the
I'm
worry.
a short guy too.
That's the worry. That's the worry with Caleb, is people are like, is he going to be 6 foot? Is that, it's like,
give a crap. He 5'10". I don't give a crap what his size is. He could be 5'10" with tiny little Burger King hands from that Whopper commercial, right? And if I saw what I saw from him at USC, that's all I care about. Don't give me these measurements. I mean, it's the same thing about
Oklahoma.
and
at Oklahoma.
Thanks for reminding me there, Calls. Appreciate that.
Hey,
we had Spencer Rattler ruined.
Hey, he was committed to LSU and then dropped out and went to Oklahoma. So it's not like
Stafford committed to Texas and ended up at Georgia. So, these things happen to the best of it. At least I'm not bitter about it. I definitely don't remember it 30 years later, or however long it's been for Matt Stafford now or whatever. But yeah, I mean, those things happen. But I don't even know where we're going now. I am completely lost. I've talked myself into a circle.
I have one last Texas question for you.
Of course, yeah.
Jonathan Brooks and the knee injury. Yeah. Where's he at with that as far as for next year? And where do you see him falling down to maybe because of that?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because today I just saw, I think his agent posted something about how he's expected to be back for training camp. And, I mean, maybe I understand that recovering from an ACL injury has become a little bit quicker, but I mean, Jesus, we saw Javonte Williams go out there and look like dog crap for 6 weeks. So I would rather have you not play and recover and, not have miles on your leg if you're going to play like that. You know what I mean? So I think he starts the year on the PUP, which means a month right now, at least. But I also think, and I can't believe, I didn't think I was going to have this process or this in my thought process going into the season. But when I watched Jonathan Brooks play this year, I went, this is going to be another number 1 overall running back for the Longhorns. He's going to be the first running back off the board for sure. He was so good. He made so many missed tackles forced. I mean, it was insane. And that was against your team, by the way. The knee injury was in that K-State game where you guys almost had us. Oh my God. I was in Phoenix because that was right when the World Series was happening too. So I was in Phoenix watching that game at my buddy's house. And I remember his wife is just watching me sweat this out and like bite my fingernails and stuff. And yeah, it was a whole fun game. But Brooks, Brooks, I think, has the possibility to be the first running back off the board. I still think it'll be someone healthy. I think it'll probably be Braylon Allen because he's young and he's big and he can handle the workload. I think he might be a little too slow. I like Bucky Irving a lot. I think Bucky Irving probably fits for certain schemes. And I remember my most recent mock draft I did with CK over on the War Room. I put him in Philly, and I love that fit because they need somebody too. Because Swift is a free agent. I think Gainwell is like the only running back left there. I think Boston Scott is a UFA as well. Not that they can't bring those guys back, but I just think Bucky would do everything that Swift did a little bit faster. So I think Bucky would fit there very well. Blake Corum is also another guy that can be first in there. Once again, I think Brooks would be ahead of all of those guys if he was healthy. Yeah. But, I mean, running backs have short lifespans, and he's coming into the league with an ACL tear. So I think he's going to be the 5th running back off the board. I think he goes behind all those guys plus Benson, who I didn't really like. Benson is fine. He's explosive. He's fast. But he runs a little upright. He gets tackled too easy sometimes. I don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm on Trey Benson. So, but the running backs were less impressive the more I watched, I feel like, this class, but there is still talent there. And as we all know, running back is the easiest position to plug and play, right? Outside of pass blocking, which will take guys off the field on third downs. But, hand the ball, run with the ball, kid. It's not real hard, so it is an easily transitionable, position. The most transitional, where I would say tight end, I would think is the opposite, because you go from blocking, a guy who's on a backup scholarship from Michigan State to TJ Watt at tight end. Yeah, that it's just the biggest leap, I think, is tight end. So, and the least leap is running back, I think. Yeah. So,
well, if we're doing hypotheticals with Brooks, I would also want to say that if he didn't have that knee injury, Hook'em Longhorns would be national champs.
Okay. I'll take that one too. Yeah. I didn't think that, but I'll take that one.
I'll take that one.
I'm going to say too, Brooks will not be the only Texas running back drafted. Keelan Robinson.
Yeah, he's a beast
too, because he is super fast and he will return kicks and punts, play on special teams. He'll get drafted probably in the 6th or 7th round, but he'll go, I think.
Yeah, he's really good. Well, this has been outstanding. You've given us a ton of information here, both in the draft and Steelers.
I was going to say, I hope these shows aren't usually 30 minutes long and I'm at an hour.
No, this has been outstanding. I think it's been packed with information and it's been a great episode. Every time you come on, it's not only fun to talk to you, you have great takes. And
appreciate that.
Yes, I mean, this has been great. I think the Steelers Nation is going to be very happy hearing you kind of break this down here. And then gotta love some Texas football talk.
Of course, it's ball. Like I said, beats, digging ditches. We're all having a good time here. So thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate the invite again. And yeah, I'll be a Steelers guy. Just hit me up. So
love it. I'll be a Doug.
I'll be a Doug. I'll be a Doug. Come on. I'll be a Doug. I'll do it.
Doug. Truck, sign us, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Bogman. Everybody, go check out Scott Bogman on X at Bogman Sports. Make sure you check out the FantasyPros Dynasty Football Podcast. You can find them there, and among other things, go check them out
in this league.
But thanks again. In this league, yes. Go ahead, plug the other ones that I did not mention.
Yeah, just Fantasy Pros in this league. I'm also, if you like college football, I'm on CFB Winning Edge, which is on campus to Canton with Nick Allen and Xavier Trish. So you can check me out there as well if you like some college football talk.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for everyone listening, watching, and please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment in our comment section. Let us know what you think the Steelers should be doing this offseason. If you think we got things right, or if we got them horribly wrong, please let us know. So, but other than that, everybody buckle up.